there are no short conversations. You know, my mother was very angry at me that when I left NYU a few months ago, they had a party to say goodbye, and that she wasn't invited. So I was very relieved when Douglas Javelin said that he was having a little thing tonight, because I knew I could invite my mother, so I could make it up today. You know, my wife and I have conversations all the time about how lucky we are, and we are. And I'm going to tell you a few of the reasons why. None of you are going to have the fortune to meet my father, but my father was a great man. He was born in Brooklyn and lived a good portion of his life here. His business was here. He spent all his years, if not living in Brooklyn, then driving into Brooklyn. You've had a chance to meet my mother. So I always tell, when patients ask me, this is actually the truth, when patients ask me what's the best thing that they could do to keep their hearts healthy, I always tell them the same thing: choose your parents properly. and that is actually the truth. But there's a lot of other things that you can do to keep your hearts healthy, and we can spend the next couple of years having a conversation about that. My wife's parents are here. Reese's mother grew up here in Borough Park. Lillian, which street did you grow up in?
42nd, between 9th and 10th.
42nd Street between 9th and 10th. So
I'm back home too.
She's back home too, and she actually forced me to drive her by there a few months ago when she heard that I was coming here. And again, you know, Risa comes from very good stock also, and that's been very important to my children. Risa's father, who's also here, Jack, is an orthodontist and a very brilliant guy. I'm lucky in a lot of ways. I was giving an interview this past week to somebody, and they asked me about what I do, and I said, well, you know, I mean, I could talk about being a heart surgeon, but what I can honestly say is that I'm a person who gets to do a job that they like to do every day. And I never go into work saying to myself, wow, I have to work today. And for all of us in this room who can say that, we can consider ourselves incredibly lucky. I've been lucky in my life in other things, and a lot of them having to do with work. As a resident, I got a chance to be sent to the National Institutes of Health for 2 years, where I did research in heart surgery. And in order to do that, one of my mentors, Steve Colvin, actually paid my salary for 2 years out of his pocket. I was asked to do a sabbatical in the early 1990s from NYU. I had been a heart surgeon on staff there as an attending now for 5 years, and Dr. Frank Spencer and Steve Colvin came to me and said, we want you to learn to do heart and lung transplants. So I said, fine. I've learned in my life that it's always important to say yes. And my children were very young, and my wife had just finished her residency in psychiatry. And so we packed ourselves off to California and spent a year at Stanford. And I was lucky enough to be invited into a research group for the development of minimally invasive heart surgery. And while I can't take credit for having invented it, I can say that I did contribute to it. And then, as part of NYU, I was lucky enough to have support there for people who were interested in having this continue to happen. So I've been very lucky in my life to be associated with a lot of great people. I've mentioned some of them. I feel very lucky to be associated now with a program that was started by Joe Cunningham, who Joe knew me, as he's pointed out, a number of times, and he is much taller than me. He knew me since I was this big, which is almost true. And certainly in a lot of ways I was that big when we first met. And I especially feel lucky to have been invited to be a part of Maimonides. So I just want to mention a few things. And I'm going to apologize to those I don't mention, because I'm sure there are people that I should mention that I'm not going to. But I can't even tell you how great the start has been here, and how many great people I've met. But first of all, I'm very lucky to have brought Greg Crook with me, to have talked him into coming and leaving his career at NYU and coming here to Brooklyn with me. And you know, I think as all of you get to know him, you're going to find a great guy, a very brilliant guy, a great surgeon, and somebody you can really totally depend upon. And definitely the beginnings have been excellent. I came here to find an excellent group of heart surgeons. And they kept a great program going, and honestly, they deserve a round of applause for having done that. And there's a couple of guys who aren't here, but you should, I want to tell you that despite the fact that they've been here and a lot of you have been here for very long periods of time, I honestly do not believe that people really know just how good these guys are. Why did I come here? I was wondering if I was going to be asking myself a lot after arriving, but I haven't had to ask myself that at all. But there are very key people in why I came. Some of them are here tonight, so I'm going to name them off. Mark Cronenfeld, who's the vice chair of anesthesia here, and Steve Constadt, who's the chair of anesthesia here, were absolutely critical in making this happen. And as I told them when they originally called me, I'm not interested in a job. But somehow they got the ball rolling and this happened. And from cardiology, meeting Jacob Shani and Bob Frankel, that was critical for me to come here, because the cardiology department here is actually better than any other cardiology department in this city. I've heard people say, best in Brooklyn. They're the best in the city. These guys are amazing. And, I really hope that we can get the word out on this even more than locally, so that people really get a chance to know the truth of this. And of course, from two of the people that you've already heard from, Pam Breyer and Pat Borgen, and if I hadn't met them both and spent a lot of time, and they spent a lot of time with me, talking to me about coming to this program, had they not done that, there would have been zero chance that I would be here now. So, thank you both. I want to tell you, and I'm just about done, thank God, finally. But I want to tell you just how good the things I have found here. And again, I have to say that in a lot of ways, Maimonides is the best kept secret anywhere. But you should know that you have this fabulous infrastructure for doing heart surgery. You have new operating rooms that are as good as any I've worked in. You have an ICU that, while it's going to need sprucing up, has a staff that's incredible. I don't know how well you guys know, but you have incredibly terrific people, and I'm going to mention one in particular, Lorraine Carroll, who is amazing. And in addition to everything else, managed to go down and find my mother and my in-laws in the parking lot tonight. Otherwise, they might have never made it up here.